the sound is going really up and down.
Wow.
Let's see there. Is that better? Yeah, now it's like within the bars. Before it was like literally jumping outside the line of the bars. I think this is a little better. Maybe a little more. Open your heart to me, baby.
You can't have the same cold open as the 2 episodes ago.
Yeah, that's true. You definitely need to cut that.
Yeah.
What did you think of the lip sync song last night?
Oh, what did I think of the dancing, or what did I think of the song in general?
Both.
Okay, one, weird pick.
Yeah, very synthy.
You know, it's really funny because it's almost as if they played it like I've read. Okay, RuPaul's Drag Race conspiracy theory #1. That they do that. They have like backup songs.
I think they choose a song based on who's in the bottom 2.
Yeah, and
I think
like,
they do.
When do they get when do they get the song?
So I've been told that they get the entire list of songs before the season, and they're supposed to listen to them. Yeah, but they don't know what song they're going to be singing until they are required to. 5 minutes. Like when they go back in the workroom and the judges are deliberating, that's when they get told what song.
Okay, cool. Because so this kind of goes along with my conspiracy theory is that, or the ones that I've heard, not that it's my own, is that based on what they pick or who's in the bottom, they'll do that purposely to keep the queen that they want.
Totally. And I think that made sense this week because this was a song that really played to Utica's advantage.
Yes, because Utica should have gone home.
You think so? I love her.
No, I mean,
she bombed Snatch Game.
Based on that, and then also based on who she was up against in the lip sync.
Yeah, Elliot's a great dancer.
Yes.
Great dancer. But I mean, they both bombed Snatch Game, and I will say I did not care for Elliot's runway look. Utica every week frickin' brings it on the runway. She is a fashion queen. It's so inventive, her stuff. But
yeah,
I do worry her time is soon to go, unfortunately.
Yeah. And if it's like, if you're not good at comedy, if you're not good at Snatch Game, if you might not be good at the acting.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about. I don't think she's multi-dimensional enough. And I get the feeling Rue also picks up on that, and I get the feeling Rue doesn't care for her much.
No.
But I mean, I don't know that for sure. I love her. I wish Utica would win. I don't think she will, but no. I wish she would win. I think she's got insane fashion.
Yeah.
But
the level that they sew at is like insane.
Yeah. She's so good.
The Seventh-day Adventists need a win.
They do.
What did you say? As does the city.
As did the state of Minnesota. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love her. I hope she makes it far, but based on her track record, I don't know how much longer she'll be around.
Yeah.
But oh well.
Mike doesn't watch Drag Race.
No, he's not part of the cold open this week.
Okay, so I'm ready. Do you guys keep the video on?
Yeah, it's a video podcast.
Oh shit! Okay, just a minute. I gotta get a hat. My hair's fucked up. 1 minute.
I'm leaving all of this in. It stays.
It stays. Our special guest, Mike.
Do you know what? While Mike is out of the room, let's go over your because you weren't with us last week. Welcome, by the way. Here we are. It's the Full Volume Podcast. I am your host, G.I. Jolie, and as always, I'm joined by my beauteous co-host.
That's me. It's Harvey Brent. What's up?
Yeah, and today we are discussing the final chapter of WandaVision. We'll wait for Michael to put his headphones in.
He's almost there.
Yeah. Awesome.
Actually, fun fact, this episode was billed as the series finale. Don't know if anybody caught that.
Whoa.
It was billed as a series finale. So this was
We should talk about that on the show, right?
It's a limited series. Yeah.
Well, as far as I knew, they have not announced a second season. They specifically said that. Yeah.
And I would not be surprised if we didn't get one, because it's very tied to. We're already going on a tangent. 2 seconds in. It's really tied to the actual concept of the show, which was like, the dealing with grief, and dealing with loss, and how that goes through the generations with the different, TV show formats. So it'd be interesting for them to try and reproduce that. I don't know how you would.
It would be strange. Yeah, but I mean,
it would be multiverse, multiversatile.
The way that they ended it, assuming we all / the viewing audience at home got to the second cutscene. I mean, credit scene. Yes.
Yeah.
That scene. It makes sense that this goes right into the events of Doctor Strange.
Yeah. And I mean, with that, we're tantalizing our viewers. Do we want to, first of all, say thank you for having guest host Mike back on with us here?
Hey guys, thanks for having me, eh?
Yeah. And now, I mean, did we want to do like a quick recap of what happened this episode?
We'll do a quick recap. But because Brent wasn't with us last episode, we still want to get your thoughts. Right? Should we do where we left off, your thoughts on the last episode, and then we'll dive right into this one.
Okay. You do the recap of where we left off, and I'll chime in with my thoughts and feelings.
Great. Okay. So, point by point, Agatha has revealed to everybody that Wanda is a Scarlet Witch. She holds the boys captive, and it's clear that she wants Wanda's power. Monica Rambeau has a run-in with Pietro, and the White Vision has been brought online by that toxic snake in the grass, Hayward.
Yeah.
All right. Thoughts? Opinions?
So the episode last week, and I know you reviewed it with Mr. Josh Marvel, it was good. It was certainly a lot more exposition than all of the other episodes put together. But one thing I will take away from it that I did like is that it did confirm my working theory that I've been talking about across all of our episodes, that this really is a lesson in grief, this whole show. Like this, and we saw that with Agatha taking Wanda through, Wanda's life and everything that happened, and that has led her to this whole situation that started in Westview. So in that respect, I liked it. It's pretty exposition heavy, which I didn't love. But it was a lot. It was a lot to take in. And it was exhausting. Like maybe that was the point of the episode last week, was to kind of take you along on that journey with Wanda to really unpack her shit, and like as a viewer, you're there unpacking Wanda's shit with her to see how she got to this point in her life. So yeah, in that respect, it worked. But I just felt exhausted by the end of the episode. And I haven't actually listened to your recap with you and Josh last week. So I don't even know how you guys feel about it and what you guys said about it.
Josh really loved it. I mean, he loves every episode, but I felt much like you. I was literally visibly exhausted speaking about it, and I didn't like it. And I did say, now, I love every episode. I just didn't like this episode as much as I liked the other ones. They seem to be going in a really cool, experimental, like they were taking us down this experimental road that they abandoned for like facts and reality, which is fine. But I feel like it sort of is unevenly balanced. At the start of the season, you get all of these episodes that are all very experimental, and the story, Wilbur, the story really doesn't go, it doesn't go too far into reality. But then all of a sudden, the moment you learn that this is a program, it's like a literal television program, that it is a hex that is on this town, it's like they couldn't wait to dive into the world that is like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They were just like waiting to get rid of the other stuff. I don't know what your thoughts are about it, Mike, but those are my thoughts.
Here's the thing is, I think that on one hand, it's probably the most interesting Marvel property as far as experimentation. But now that it's all done and we've seen it, it's almost like now we can ask, okay, yes, but could they have done it differently? Because you have those, on one hand, you have people complaining, oh, the first 3 episodes were so slow. And then you have some people saying, well, now that the first 3 episodes are done, it's not as good. And so you start to think, okay, definitely the first 3 were the most, to me, exciting because you had no idea what was going on. And I almost wonder if they could have dragged it out even more and maybe revealed the clues more slowly. Because if you remember, wasn't it episode 4 where they revealed almost everything?
Yes.
Yeah.
They took you into the real world.
Right, and once that, and it's kind of like the Lost syndrome, where I remember when I was watching Lost, the moment they showed that submarine outside in the real world, it popped the bubble for me, because then I thought, oh, now I know it's in the real world, now I know it's in the real time, now I know that people know about it, and I wish it's almost like I wish they could have figured a way to save everything until the end, and maybe just given us clues, like a little bit of Jimmy Woo, a little bit of Monica Rambeau, and then had everything happen. All the big revelations were in episode, whatever, what was last week? 7? Maybe?
No, last week was 8.
I know was 8? Okay, and this was 9?
Yeah.
So you pointed out that 8 had all this exposition. Maybe that would have had even more, but like other people have said, the stuff with Jimmy Woo and Sword wasn't as interesting to me as the stuff in the bubble.
Yeah.
So now that it's done, I think we can analyze it and say, okay, if they were to do something like this again, is there a way to do it better? There's nothing wrong with that, right? So
True.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel. There was a lot of exposition, and I thought it was a little bit on the nose with like the reason she was in a sitcom world is because she had this box set of Dick Van Dyke and this box set of whatever.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit too specific, but I guess in the end, the explanation was never going to be perfect. So
No, and I really didn't have I didn't have a problem with that explanation, except for one intrepid viewer pointed out that having a box set of Malcolm in the Middle that season did not exist. If this timeline, based on the timeline that we're given. So, whoa.
Malcolm in the Middle is our first Marvel time paradox. Whoa. I will say though, so Mike, you kind of mentioned how it was on the nose last week, and I want to spend too much time on episode 8 because this is an episode 9 after show, and we should brand it as such, even though it's technically episode 7 in our full volume category. But I will say, as a European descendant with European relatives in Europe, that Rwanda's experience is not. It's unique. A lot of European media and like their syndicated TV is like 10 years behind. And I kind of saw it from a different way where I'm like, okay, that's just like what everybody's watching, not just Wanda. So in the way that made it a little more digestible to me, because I knew like that's actually very common of Eastern European countries, like quote Sokovia, and like actual real countries like Croatia and whatnot. Right. So that's like their cultural syndications are always like behind like that. So it makes sense that Wanda would kind of be into like more of those old shows, and to me that kind of made sense. But I will agree with you that it is on the nose. But I just looked at it from a bigger picture of like, that's Eastern European culture. That's not Wanda culture.
Right, right.
I like that assessment, that point.
Yeah. And it's like, I've seen people talk about it online too, and I'm like, yep, that is true. From someone with Eastern European relatives, that is the case.
Right.
So I mean, but that's something you'd have to have perspective to understand and digest. The average viewer might not have that perspective. And so in that case, I agree with Mike in the sense that in that case, it would be a little on the nose.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, I mean, I guess we can dive into this episode 9, entitled Series Finale. I've heard rumblings, but there are just rumblings that they're going to do another series. except for these exact rumblings also don't say when, don't say with who. Obviously, it should be Wanda and Vision, but you know what I mean? I think it's just like very low rumblings from people, like from PAs who have heard shit around the office, and it's like, yeah, okay, cool. If they do a second series, one, who would watch it? Two, what would it be about even? Three, if they're gonna tie it into a Marvel movie, which one? And four, like, where in our timeline is it gonna happen? Is it gonna happen next year as per regular TV schedules, or is it gonna happen 10 years down the road when Marvel's announcing phase whatever and we're dead? Like, who knows, right?
Right.
So I take all of those announcements with a grain of salt. And honestly, if this was the series finale, as it is titled, I'm fine with it.
Yeah,
Perfect.
well, I'm fine with it, but I mean, we're gonna have to unpack the episode of what happened here and some things. But I do actually think this might be the weakest episode of the entire season. Maybe episode 8, but this one, there are, and we'll get into it, but there was some real fumblings of some, I'd say, multiple characters. Aside from Wanda, I think they did Wanda justice. Vision, TBD, who knows? They certainly set up the Vision situation interesting by the end of this episode by, you know, downloading his memories into the White Vision, but he still lacks humanity. That could be interesting. But there's stuff that we need to unpack. We need to talk it out because some of it worked, but I'm going to argue that some of this episode did not work.
Okay, great. So now we've arrived at our Airbnb. Our locked suitcase is on the bed.
Triggering.
Okay, let's open this bitch up. Okay, so Wanda and Agatha are outside and they're duking it out magic style. And we see Wanda is losing power because Agatha is like a power sucker. And she says something that's kind of bitchy. And she's like, well, I am able. Didn't you forget? Or not didn't you forget, but I take power from those who are undeserving. And I'm like,
the shade.
Yeah, I was like, bitch, you're gonna get it. You're going to get it. Okay, so there are a lot of things that happen too during their fight because they fight in the air, one, and two. So that means they're all over Westview. They're in front of the WandaVision house. They're in the town square where they eventually land, and all of the townspeople are there. And they're all, you know, they're hexed, but Agatha is able to clear the hex from their minds, and they all kind of like turn on Wanda, which is scary. And it looks like she's like been backed into a corner. But again, Wanda's really powerful, doesn't know the extent of her power. Even in trying to shut out their voices, she inadvertently magically strangles all of them. Not to death, thank God. She kind of comes to it before they, you know, lose all breath entirely. But yeah, so because of that happening, she decides to free the town. She's like, no, I don't. You're right. Superheroes don't hurt humans. She opens the hex. Sword agents get in.
Right.
Also, there's a couple other like Easter eggs that had come up that are that this plot corroborates. Agatha does a comic book thing that really annoys me, but she's like, here's the Darkhold. The Darkhold is the book of magic. Here's the history of and then just chatters on about the history of the Darkhold. Saying
Speaking of exposition.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, who wrote this episode? Chris Claremont?
Whoa. Ba-dum-dum.
And and she's like, this is the book that tells you, and it's like there's a page on the Scarlet Witch specifically.
Right.
She's like,
right.
And she's like,
How
you're
convenient.
and I guess all Scarlet Witches must have the same like shape of headpiece. That's what denotes a Scarlet Witch, because the silhouette / drawing inside their Darkhold is a picture of the Scarlet Witch. So yeah. It's a being with great power. It's a being more powerful than the Sorcerer Supreme, who is currently Dr. Stephen Strange. And it is a creature that can conjure without incantation. And Wanda's like, no, there's no way that I'm what you're saying I am. I just happen to have these powers. I don't know where they're from. And she kind of refuses to believe it, and inadvertently refuses to believe in how powerful she is, which is kind of dangerous for herself and the people of Westview. So she opens the boundary. They all get in. At that time, Sword is just awakening Vision. We've created the White Vision, so he gets in too. And he walks up to Wanda. I don't remember how their fight ends. Why do Agatha and Wanda stop fighting?
Wanda and Agatha stopped fighting because Wanda threw a car at Agatha.
Right.
And then they did a little callback to the Wizard of Oz there with the boots under the car, which was very clever. And then Agatha, I assume, took that time to regroup, and then Wanda diverted her attention to the two visions and had some unpacking there, and then they went to the town square. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So they decide, White Vision, who she mistakes as Vision, because they look exactly alike, except for he's all white and a little bit blue. I'm
in love with that color palette, by the way. Just neat. Delicious. Give me that on a runway.
Speaking of an episode that has launched 1,000 cosplays from, this is exactly what I wrote down. No, I'll get to it. Okay. No, we're going on a tangent. We can't tangent. We know we've hit the tangent. We've introduced the tangent button. We'll have an actual button later. I'm developing a button. It might just be that dance hall horn. Who knows? Okay.
I'm into it.
So Vision tries to crush her skull because he gets close enough to her to do it. She realizes he's not the Vision that she knows, but the Vision that she does know, the one that she created, swoops in, saves the day. They kind of do like a I'm sorry I did this to you, but we'll talk about it later. Fake Vision gets it. He knows. He has Vision's memories. He has memories of their love. He loves her. Anyway, Vision takes on Vision, and then Wanda continues to go after Agatha. Okay. Right. So, as synthezoids, though, they are able to hash it out logically and with reason, which is the best fight I've ever seen Marvel do. I don't know what you all thought about this, but there was one point where Vision said something to White Vision, and White Vision was like, wait, I need more information about the point.
Right.
And then they stop fighting. And then they talk about how he's like, well, they talk about that quote, or was it a poem?
Yeah, I want to look it up. Was it Theseus or something?
Mm-hmm.
The ship of Theseus. That's what it was.
Right.
I'm
gonna go.
Are you familiar with the thought?
Go ahead.
I'll just read it quick. Are you familiar with the thought experiment, the ship of Theseus, in the field identity metaphysics? I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but it's almost like a Tom King-esque thing that he brought up there. But you can go ahead, Jolie.
Yeah. So he basically, Vision says to White Vision, I am a creation. I'm the essence of Vision, but you are the physical embodiment. You are the pieces of the ship, the planks of wood. We together make a full Vision. So he touches his blue spot. And and it's really cool because you see it like kind of run through him. You see the yellow of what used to be the Soul Stone. Was it the Soul Stone or the Mind Stone?
I think they said Mind Stone.
I think it was Mind Stone.
That's it. Soul Stone's purple. Sorry.
But I know the colors are reversed between the comics and the MCU, so that it's good that you asked that. But I believe in the MCU, Mind Stone is yellow.
Got it. Okay. And I should remember this. Like, I just rewatched the various sagas because there were a lot of things that I didn't remember about their relationship, and I just wanted to see it play out through the movies. And it's it's still, if you just made a super cut of all of their relationship stuff, that happened between them, it's like, how did these two get together? That's weird. It would still be weird.
If I were still in high school, I would make you a supercut and I would set it to like a really emo song, like I'm Not Okay by My Chemical Romance or something. Like, I used to do that with Kingdom Hearts footage, but that's a conversation for another day.
Wow. You know, the world is a classroom, and I learn something new every day.
You're edutained.
Hey, do you want...
It's our responsibility.
I'll just read you the thing. It's only 2 lines long, okay? All he says is, the ship of Theseus is an artifact in a museum. Over time, its planks of wood rot and are replaced with new planks. When no original plank remains, is it still the ship of Theseus? That's it.
Got it.
So
yeah.
So then they talk about, so which one is the real vision, right? Blah, blah, blah. And then going back to what you were saying, then he gives him all his memories.
Yeah. Without one is not truly the real vision, but together they make one whole vision.
Did anybody find that particular fight scene and resolution was extremely comic booky, but not in a bad way? That felt like a very comic book style of writing where, like, I'm going to give you download all my memories to you. Like, does that not feel very comic booky to anyone else?
Well, like I said, it's something Tom King would have done in The Vision, yeah. So I thought it was great.
The conflict was resolved with no fists, which is is something that a smart writer would do.
Men take note. Not everything needs fists.
And some women. I'm looking.
But now,
some women.
I was confused, though, to be honest, because you had White Vision and Colored Vision. Then he gave White Vision his memories. Mm-hmm. But then White flew out, but then White Vision had color. But they didn't show that transition, did they? No. So that's why I thought it was one of those red herrings where it's like Mystique, where, wait a minute, is this Mystique or is it Wolverine? I don't know what's going on. I thought maybe it was a red herring, but it wasn't, though, right?
No, I don't think so. I rewatched just to better know the material that we talk about. I watched every episode like 3 times.
Okay.
The first time I watched it was at 6 a.m. on Friday morning because I didn't want to be spoiled by the internet, despite Kat Dennings and Agent Wu giving the world like a deep scolding. So, I mean, it wasn't even that deep. They just asked people to be like good to each other and not spoil everyone's favorite TV show. I mean, is that so much to ask? No. Okay, so at 6:30 a.m., I thought when he was like, I'm Vision, and he bursts through the skylight and away from their fight, I thought I could have sworn I saw him turn into Colored Vision. Like television went from black and white to color. Whoa. But he didn't. I looked for it the second time and it didn't happen.
Weird.
I hallucinated it. Oh geez, my door opened in my bedroom and I'm home alone. It's the cat. The fear in my eyes. I almost screamed. Hey Hannah. Okay, so he flies off and the Vision rejoins the boys who are now on the ground watching Agatha and Wanda fight.
Well, I think it's important, though, to note, too, as without getting too far into the fight between Agatha and Wanda, because there's stuff that occurs there, as Wanda decides to lift the hex, at the same time, she's freeing the people of Westview. At the same time, it's chipping away at her boys and Vision, because they are a product of said hex.
Yes.
So this is really good to me, and like this is a really good resolution of a character arc, because I've been saying before, Mike, you've been on a couple of shows, but I kept saying earlier on in other episodes, this really is a story about grief, and I knew it, and I knew it was, because what this is about at the end of the day is Wanda's lost so many people in her life that, you know, her bringing Vision into existence, you know, was her in those initial stages of grief, which is, you know, denial, bargaining, all of that stuff. And, you know, as time went on, you saw her get angry, you know, at people. You saw her get depressed, where, you know, she was laying in bed that one episode all by herself. So these were clearly stages of grief. And now they've put up the final stage of grief, acceptance, against the doing the better good, which is letting go of the people of Westview. So Wanda's having to choose between letting the people of Westview go, but that also means letting go of her family. Very, very, very good writing. That is, it's very good. And so, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Jolie, but I just really wanted to drive that home that Wanda has, in that moment, has to make a choice between letting her family go and letting the residents of Westview go. However, it appears she lets some residents escape the hex, some maybe, but then she can't bring herself to do it in that moment, and she brings the hex back down because she doesn't want to lose Vision and the boy. She's not quite at that acceptance stage yet.
No, and even when before Vision and Wanda part to fight their whatever adversary it is, they look at each other and they agree, this is our home and we're gonna fight to save it, and then they go fight. They've both decided, even though Vision is a creation of the hex, he's decided that he's gonna fight for his existence, and then they do it. So it's really sad. Another thing that we missed, which is like the third plot. If there's three plots, then one is Wanda and Agatha. The second is the Vision. The third is Monica Rambeau. There's like a third plot that we'll just we're gonna ignore for right now until the end of this, because the Wanda/Vision plot, I think, one, the TV show is named WandaVision. We're gonna just stay here.
Yeah, stay in this lane.
Yeah,
it's the only lane worth driving in this last episode.
We'll stay in this lane, and then we'll turn right on Rambeau Crescent when we're ready.
Down Evan Peters Drive.
Oh,
I'm gonna park my van outside there, but yeah.
You mean Boner Drive?
Anyway. Don't get me started on how badly they fumbled this. That is.
Okay, wait. I thought we were waiting. Wait. Are we gonna
tangent button? We're getting.
Keep going, Jolie.
Okay.
I'm waving away the bad vibes. Keep going.
I'll just smudge this area.
Sorry, I should have said Boner Boulevard. Go ahead, Jolie.
Again, smudging with my elementary witch level. If Wanda's a Scarlet Witch, what am I? Like, I'm just a regular geode. Anyway, beach glass?
Into it.
Okay. So, blah, 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 in my notes.
C plot. What were you talking about? WandaVision?
Getting back to Vision. Yeah, making the choice.
Here we go.
That's what Brent was talking about, making the choice.
So they're fighting.
Yeah.
Vision's got the boys. They're up in the air fighting. He's letting her fight this on his own. Okay. So, Wanda keeps hurling magic at Agatha, and then she sees that it's being sucked away from her. And she's like, oh crap. Like, Agatha keeps telling me I'm this all-powerful being, but she doesn't believe it. This will be her undoing if she doesn't do something quick, right? So she appears to give up. Like, she doesn't want the power anymore. And Agatha is egging her on. She's like, just give it to me. You know you want to. Just give me all your power. You don't deserve it. So they're up in the air, and she just does it. She starts throwing all of her scarlet energy towards Agatha. But as they're fighting, you see that she misses a couple times. And the first time she misses, it hits the wall of the hex, which is not odd, but she does it again and again and again. And this time it's like, there's no way she's missing that many times, right? So which plays an important role in what is happening. So Agatha, at the point, she's gathered up enough energy from Wanda that it looks like this is the end for Wanda. One more hurl of scarlet energy, and she'll have sucked the entire life out of her, because her body is limp. It's like ready to go. But she raises her hands to cast that last incantation that will drain her power away, and nothing happens. She does it again, and it's like comical, and that's the Catherine Hahn that I want to see a lot. It's like she's got her hands up, and she's like, okay, what?
Yeah.
She's unable to cast any spells, and it turns out that the student has learned well and fooled her teacher. So Wanda lifts like her, like she's She pulled a Buffy.
She pulled a Buffy.
Buffy season 4. Anyway, she allowed herself to be drained to the point that it looked like she was giving up. She lifts her head, and then it kind of like super pans back, and you can see the walls of the hex, and they're glowing with runes.
Yes.
Yes, she has been, in fact, casting runes on the walls of the hex in order to keep Agatha from performing spells in that magic space, because it's now her magic space. Mm-hmm. The best twist I've ever seen in a fight. Like,
it was good.
In a fight of wizards or sorcerers.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting to hear your guys' opinion on that, because I could not decide in the moment if I liked that or not. And I was like, and technically, yes, but I was like, did they set that up well enough in episode 7? Because they did, or episode 8, rather. I think it was beginning of episode 8. And I'm like, I think they did. I think they did set it up well enough. But I had to stop and think there for a second. I'm like, was that a lazy setup? Like, was it forced? But I think they pulled it off. But it was shaky.
Yes.
The thing is whenever you're dealing with something on that level of magic and like people flying around fighting, it's very hard to ground it, and it's very hard to say what the rules are. So I know what you're saying. It's like they did set it up, but was it strong enough? I'm not sure, but at least it was strong enough that at least I remembered. I'm like, oh yeah, they said that last week. So it didn't like take me out of it at all. You know, and at least it was better than having no explanation or no rules, you know? So
totally.
Maybe it wasn't great, but I thought it was fine. I thought it was good enough. But I'd have to rewatch it again to really judge whether or not it was perfect, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like I don't know what kind of witch lore that they're like pulling their information from, like whatever, but it's like usually a net is used to catch a witch or like
right.
But you don't really use runes, but whatever, you know what I mean? Josh mentioned something about this the last episode when we were talking about how like Agatha was going to meet her demise, and I really wish I remembered because it was a really good point, but it was about something like along those lines, like where this kind of thing is grounded, the way that they could do it is grounded in magic, real magic that exists. So it's like, oh, okay. Anyway, yeah. like a white net or a binding spell, if you will. This is like their version of a binding spell, or like a protective circle. Or a ring of salt. Like now this is Wanda's domain. I mean, you see, where did I see it before? It was in The Magicians, where runes are actually printed on the walls of a vault. Once the magicians get inside the vault, not like a carnival magician. Like, oh,
I know what you mean. I do watch the show, but I'm watching it very slow, so no spoilers.
Okay, perfect. So once they get in, they can't get out because the runes trap them in there. So it isn't. Maybe there is some information about the use of runes in protective or spatial magic spells, but it would definitely require more research from me.
I wonder if they were ever brought up in any Doctor Strange, like in the Doctor Strange film, or maybe Avengers Infinity War. I'm wondering if that rune concept was brought up. Like, obviously Agatha brought it up. I understand that. I'm just saying it would be cool to kind of connect it back to Doctor Strange a little bit. But I mean, I cannot remember. I've definitely seen the film. I just cannot remember. I'm assuming it wasn't brought up. But who knows?
Yeah, I don't think it was, but...
Yeah.
No, I don't think so either. Okay, so she's unable to cast any spells. She's rendered powerless because now this space is only Wanda's, and she's the only witch who can cast within that space. So Wanda takes all of the energy back. So this whole act, because she, even despite this being an act, she is able to, she's just able to do it.
So I'm guessing the logic is that like Agatha, because she's not allowed to cast magic in that space, she's not allowed to hold on to that magic, maybe?
Oh no, she can hold on to the magic. She just can't cast to protect herself either. Right? So she has all of this energy, but now the space is protected by runes, and only Wanda can cast at this point. So Wanda, who didn't believe that she was a Scarlet Witch, now believes that she's a Scarlet Witch, which means she can cast without incantation, without hand magic. So she could just think it. So to me, this is a really powerful moment because there's no exposition in this character development. It all happens on the low. While everything is happening, suddenly Wanda's like, no, if I am what she says I am, then I have access to this kind of power. I have access to any kind of magic because I am a Scarlet Witch. So she uses what she's learned from Agatha Harkness, but she's also used her own confidence in her own power to remove her power now from that she's falsely given to Agatha. She removes it, and in removing it, she emerges in her final form, launching 1,000 cosplays that no one will ever see since we're not going to conventions anytime soon. But what's the use of practicing your artistry if you can't parade it around the convention floor for photos?
Bedroom cosplayers.
Right?
Yeah.
But seriously,
Her
this
costume
outfit
is great, though. Eh?
Yeah. So she gets...
Yeah, I liked it. Yeah.
She gets the headpiece. She looks like the photo in the Darkhold. She is now in her final form. And
I will say, though, I feel like they played the shade of red a little safe compared to the comics. But at the same time, she is the Scarlet Witch. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's very...
she's the Scarlet Witch.
Comics...
Well, I was going to say, but the
Mike?
costume's like purple and black. But yeah, I know what you're saying. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, like just like the red accents, like, you know, in the comics, it would be a little more vibrant, I think. But when it's vibrant, it's not, you know, per se scarlet. So I guess this makes more sense. It's just a little safe.
It's a very Superman Returns Brandon Routh red.
Exactly my thoughts. Yes, that is a Brandon Routh rouge.
right. But the texture, like, let's be clear. Like, we see when she did the Halloween episode, we see what her costume would have looked like if it was exactly like the comic. And it does look fine in a 1970s show, but it would have looked ridiculous in this, right? So that's
true. Right. We have more muted colors now.
Yeah, like I would have liked red. Like instead of purple highlights, red would have been better. But I do like the texture and the design of the costume, and like the little, almost like a choker up here, and the hair headpiece looks great. You know, I love that design. So
yeah,
it's a little bit more dignified.
What? That's a hard headpiece to pull off. So I think they did a good job. It could have looked riglorious.
It could look like cat ears.
Yeah, it could have. It could have looked like Jolie's headset right now. Could you imagine?
Glowing and
meow.
So the fight is over. She, this is a point that I'd like to maybe discuss a little bit further. Is that what she does is that she doesn't kill Agatha, but she sentences her to live in Westview as Agnes.
Okie dokie, artichoke. Yeah.
It's avocado toast and puffy sweater vest forever.
Oh man. I mean, she thinks that's a punishment. That's my heaven. That's my nirvana right there. So somebody's living your dream out there, and Agatha's living mine.
Yeah. Just Brent, I can just picture you immediately. You're like, oh, okay. Drives to Westview. All right. There's the house. And then you guys just going on 7 p.m/7 a.m. walks all the time.
That's me.
Like Ella Gale with
the weights.
Your hand weights. Bitching about Dave. And going gaga for Bruce. Anyway. So it doesn't really clear up how Agatha goes away. She just goes away.
Yeah, which I both like and dislike.
It seems a little... Is this one of those fumbly moments?
I think it's a little sloppy, a little lazy there, that there wasn't a proper tie-off. You know, they left it a little ambiguous. But at the same time, given the performance that Catherine Hahn did, and I assume it's been very well received because everything I've seen has said that Catherine Hahn's been the best part of WandaVision, that at least gives them an easier way to bring her back in some form.
Right.
But it is a lazy send-off.
It is. Because it's a really lazy send-off, but I would love to see her again when Wanda inevitably goes to train with Doctor Strange. Anyway, I mean,
speaking of lazy send-offs, how much more do we have to talk about Wanda before we switch over to Evan Peters?
Oh, let's just wrap this all up. So anyway, okay. Wanda finally in Brent's sort of assessment, the visualization of her acceptance comes to fruition. Yes. They walk to their home.
Yeah.
So the family walks home. They put the boys to bed. WandaVision hold each other in the dark. Yada yada yada. Westview disappears around them. The end. Done.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got goosebumps just hearing that though, because that scene, it really was quite powerful, and I think they tiptoed on the melodramatic, but I think they did a great job balancing it. Like, I really think, like, to me, like, I totally in that moment felt her acceptance of moving on, like it was, man, that was good. I have to say that was, I think, the strongest, that and her trying to remove the hex initially. Those are by far the two strongest scenes of this episode.
Oh yeah. When is it that we see Vision cry? This scene?
I think so. Yeah, I think it was this scene, right?
He sheds a single tear.
A synthezoid tear.
Which is by extension not real, since he's hex energy, I guess.
It's just calcium carbonate dripping down his face, or some silica compound.
Some silica for a little less color.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, he says, and it's like love saves the day, or lines about love save the day, I should say. They say something like, that is so sweet that I almost exploded. But it was like, God, I'm gonna mess this up. If we've seen each other now, so it stands to reason we'll see each other again. And then he disappears.
Yeah. It was
sad. It was very sad. And then when she basically materializes in the real world and her house is just a foundation, and then she just walks away, it was really sad. Like, again, this show might not be perfect, but it's rare that a Marvel property tells a complete story like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It really is. It's like you were saying, it has a theme, it's about something, and that's where I think fantasy and science fiction works best, is when it's kind of an analogy for something, right? Like, it's not just about fighting alien video game characters. There's an actual point to it,
Yeah, and could you imagine if this was a film? It would have been a terrible movie. It wouldn't have been allowed to breathe. It still would have been 3 hours somehow, but it would have been garbage. Yeah.
I don't think it would have been garbage. No, I just think that this benefited from having whatever it was, 4 hours, 4.5 hours, or whatever. But anyway,
yeah,
I think it works better as a TV show, and I think that's one of the great things about modern television. Is I remember when I was a kid, I always used to fantasize about, if they made an X-Men movie, how would they condense the 2 years they were in Australia into one movie? Well, you can't. But if you do this as a TV show,
they can't, and they did a bad job.
right. Or Dark Phoenix Saga into 1 2-hour movie. But now, can you imagine, like, I mean, I know they'll do X-Men as a movie, but maybe they can do some of the storylines. Maybe they can do offshoots. Who knows?
X-Men without going off on too much of a tangent, X-Men needs to be a high-budget TV show.
Mm-hmm.
It does.
Or they could split it up, right? Or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, it's got the character arcs for it, and even just the mission-based style of the way the X-Men work. Like, oh, man, they better not screw that up. I think X-Men could be a fantastic property like WandaVision.
I agree.
Right.
And I'd love to see it. I think the kinds of plots and the kind of writers that are in writers' rooms for television, when it's really good, I think that property deserves that kind of a treatment.
And it deserves something different than what we got. I mean, Mike, you talked about earlier about how science fiction is always successful when it's an allegory for something. And to the credit of the X-Men films, they were fantastic allegories for persecution.
Right.
We'll give it that. But, man, everything else they bungled. Yeah. And they went out of their way to bungle things. Like, you just so much lazy writing and just changing of things from the comics that didn't need to be changing, combining characters and combining plot devices in ways that they didn't need to be combined. Like, they botched so much, but the theme was just so well done.
Right. And another quick tangent is we've talked about this before with, say, Batman, the Christopher Nolan Batman movies, which I love, but if you really break them down and you read between the lines, you get the impression Batman's entire career was like 3 cases. It was like Scarecrow and Ra's al Ghul, then Joker, then he retired, then he came back and it was Bane, and then he was gone. And then you go, wait a minute, there's 80 years worth of stories they still need to do. And then the same thing with Captain America, and I got into this argument with Becca. She's like, oh, I'm glad that Chris Evans is retired, now someone else can be Captain America. But I said, but wait a minute, there's 80 years of Captain America stories. They've only done 3. They've only done The Origin, Winter Soldier, and Civil War. And they didn't even really do those right. But, with say, WandaVision, now, the thing about Wanda, with Scarlet Witch and Vision, is they've never really had a long-going monthly series. They've always been the ones that didn't have their own series, but they were sort of the focus of the Avengers comic, right? And so the cool thing about the show is that they were able to, to be the center of attention, but if you start with Avengers Age of Ultron and go to the end of the series, they've summarized like 30 years of stories, right? Like if you go from the introduction of Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch and then go to when Vision becomes the White Vision with no personality, that's like 64 to 89, right? So they've condensed 25 years or whatever into 8 episodes. And now what else can they do? We know that we talked about Tom King's Vision, which I hope they do, blah, blah, blah. But if we were talking about X-Men, there's 17 years worth of X-Men just by Chris Claremont that cannot be condensed into one 2-hour movie. It's impossible, right? So you're right, a TV show, or what about this? What about a TV show where they do the big stories in a movie, where maybe there's like a season or 2, and then they do the Dark Phoenix movie, and then there's a season or 2, and then they do From the Ashes or something. That would be incredible.
Right? Yes, anyway. Like save the small missions for the TV show, and then do your big story arcs as a 3-hour film.
Yeah, and it looks like that is exactly what they're doing with this new phase of the MCU, where it's like we're giving you Wanda and Vision, and then we're giving you the culmination of that in the Doctor Strange movie. We're giving you Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and then we're culminating in this film or whatever. I don't think that it's going to be as clean as that, but hopefully with the access to the viewership of Disney Plus, that is where they inevitably lead this, because that would be a really great transition. Speaking of transitions, we got to go back. We had to U-turn back to Monica Rambeau.
Oh man.
I mean, I hate to not talk about her, but they're doing something shitty and uninteresting with a really awesome character.
They botched her hard this episode. She got maybe, I'd say, 3 minutes of screen time, maybe 4 for the entire episode.
Yeah.
It was bad. She was being held captive by Pietro, aka Kyle Boner, in his house.
No, Ralph Boner.
Oh, it's worse. It's Ralph.
Ralph, sorry. I don't want to say Kyle. I was thinking of his role in American Horror Story. He's Kyle in there.
But
sorry.
You know what? But here's the thing. When we were debating a few weeks ago and you were like, oh, maybe this is the multiverse. I think it's this, that, and the other. I kind of knew. I'm like, no, it's not going to be that. I just knew. I knew it was going to be. I knew that was a red herring. And I knew it was going to be something much more mundane.
Oh.
But
granted, okay, objectively, not one of those things is better than the other. Like, you could do a mundane route and fine, it could have meant nothing. I can see the triviality in casting Evan Peters in this role. I could see that, in having it not lead to a multiverse. One of those ideas is not better than the other. The execution was awful and disrespectful. Disrespectful.
But disrespectful to who? To
Evan Peters, and I think to the character of Quicksilver, and to me.
Every strangely janky cutout prison style photo on my wall, it was disrespectful to him.
I mean, they did give us Evan Peter in jean cutoff shorts, which Fine, thank you for that 5 seconds of that vision. But I mean, everything about that is disrespectful, and like, I mean, I don't know what his opinion is on it, but like, kudos to him for being a team player going through with that, because it was played for laughs, and it was played for crass laughs, and I don't know, he deserves better than that. I'm sorry, he does.
Here's the thing is, between the two, like, what's the other guy's name? Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Yeah,
is that his name? He is I never thought he was a good actor until I saw Nocturnal Animals. So he actually is a good actor. But in the in the Avengers movie, he was completely flat. In Kick-Ass, he's completely flat. So between the two, I'd much rather see Evan Peters, right? So this could have been an opportunity to be like, you know what? It's Evan Peters from now on, even though he's dead, even though Quicksilver's dead. So I know what you're saying in that respect. Like, it was a big letdown. But at the same time, if they're going to stick with the story that they established, I mean, how else could they bring him back? That being said, the explanation is for why. It's like, oh, because remember, Wanda says, by the way, why is your face different? And then when Agatha explained it last week about, oh yeah, I just grabbed this guy or whatever, it doesn't make any sense about how all of this could be constructed, but I couldn't manage to create the illusion of Aaron Taylor Johnson. Like, that's ridiculous.
They completely undercut themselves.
Right. But the fact that Wanda knew it was Quicksilver, how did she know it was Quicksilver? It doesn't look like him. It doesn't make any sense, right?
Because the first line that he says is, "Can a brother get a hug?"
But she addresses him before he addresses her.
Yeah, like if someone came to my door and said that, I wouldn't just be like, "Oh, it's Sean, my brother." You know, I would. You don't look like my brother, so.
Yeah. But and then I guess the multitude of after shows and articles are like, oh, her grief. It's like her grief is so big that she disregarded the fact that this man didn't look like her brother at all, but had his memories.
Catherine Hahn says that too in the show.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, okay, cool. That's how they explained it away. But it would have been better if you acknowledged her comic origin, where she's a Nexus being, and she's able to. If she's a Nexus being, then she can access the multiverse. If her grief is so large and her power is so uncontrollable, why couldn't she just snatch the Evan Peters' Quicksilver from one of the other universes in the multiverse and then allow for the X-Men to come in? Maybe
or have Agatha do it. Agatha could have snatched him.
Exactly. Like, I get it. Maybe you want to recast the X-Men for the future and you want to leave that door open. But if they, if this is any indication of what they shouldn't do, it's that they should not recast Quicksilver, because I feel like the internet would explode if it wasn't Evan Peters at this point.
Well, the thing is if you think about the 9 episodes, and by the way, I think I keep getting confused because they aired episode 1 and 2 together. So it feels like there was only 8. But anyway, that was probably the biggest twist of the whole show, wasn't it? When Evan Peters showed up, was that not the biggest twist? That was probably the one that generated the most buzz.
Totally.
And then when everyone went crazy with the fan theories, I think that's why the showrunner last week was like, just so you know, some people are going to be disappointed. Because everyone had these crazy fan theories, and in the end, like, I'm not talking about the whole show, but some of it was much more mundane than people were thinking. Which is fine, I mean, but as far as Ralph Bohner, and again, I don't have as much of a problem with as you, however, the fact that looking back, it was the biggest twist, and the explanation was so throwaway, it kind of makes
underwritten.
It like... Right, yeah, and it kind of just makes it like, oh, that was it? You know?
It's not well handled any way you slice it. I mean, fine if you want it to just be a coincidence, that's fine. But the way they actually handled it, no.
Yeah.
It was bad. I don't know, Jolie, were you impressed? I'm guessing no.
No, I was. Do you know what? At first, I was fine with it because I was just excited to see the character again that I had, I gaslit myself into accepting that into accepting Ralph Bohner as part of the MCU. I mean, he's already been written into the fandom, so I guess this is a thing now. But I wasn't impressed at all. Pardon?
Sorry, he had an entry on MarvelFandom.com by like 6:45 this morning. So anyway.
Yeah. So I in my third watching, I was like, yeah, no, I'm not into this. I don't know how they're gonna recover from this one point. Maybe people will love Evan Peters enough to forget this indiscretion, but I will not. I certainly will not forget.
He deserves better. I truly do think he deserved better writing, but
yeah.
I mean, but so did what happened with Monica Rambeau too. Like, I mean, we kind of went off on our daily Evan Peters tangent, but Monica really got underserviced this episode too. Like she got a little bit of a tie away with Wanda, seeing Wanda off, and then in the post credits scene, she's visited by a Skrull in the theater, which is, I like that they brought the Skrull in, but they're talking about Wanda's newfound powers and how she's needed above. But they did not do her justice, and they did not do Darcy justice, and they did not do Jimmy Woo justice. A lot of these side characters were bungled.
Yeah. It's like we've
Kat
wrapped
Dennings
up, so now... Yeah, she was.
Sorry, I didn't remember her being there.
She T-boned Hayward in his truck with her ice cream truck, or her circus truck.
Oh, right, okay.
And like, at least they gave her a good line. She was like, have fun in jail.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah. But I mean, she got no resolution there.
No, and then at the end when Jimmy's like, well, what happened to Darcy? And Monica's like, well, in true Darcy fashion, she, got out before the dust cleared. She gets out before the dust clears, and it was like,
that's it.
Did you just not want to pay Kat Dennings any more money to appear on screen?
It's like I've done movies like that where the actors, are no longer available, and you have to write her. It's like, oh yeah, that character that's been in the whole movie, they're not here for the ending. They're just not here. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
so my opinion, guys, aside from Wanda and Vision, who got nice tie-offs, Agnes, middle of the road. I like that they kept her open, but it was lazy. But every other character there had a very poor, resolution to what's going on. Very poor.
An unsatisfying resolution. Yeah. And it's the last two episodes were just rooted in exposition as per Marvel usual. And they were a little less satisfying. They were still satisfying, but they were way less satisfying than what they had delivered in the beginning. So
in WandaVision's defense, a lot of these shows, it's hard to keep that level of intrigue sustained through an entire season of something. Eventually something's got to give, and you have to start getting answers. And as an audience, it's really hard to balance. It's hard to balance that for audiences, and so in that sense, I empathize with them. There's very few shows I can think of that effectively pull that off. A mystery. My first thought is Twin Peaks. It's very hard to pull that off, and so in WandaVision's defense, this is a hard story structure to pull off as a mystery and all this stuff. But they did well. This is a great series overall. It's still better than 80% of the stuff on TV. Let's be real.
Mm-hmm.
Great. It's funny because I've been immersed in Twin Peaks lately, and one of the things to remember is when it debuted, it was a phenomenon, but the viewership dropped off so quickly. Like even partway through season 1, it dropped off. By the time they got to season 2, it was falling. Then they revealed who killed Laura Palmer, and then it was just in free fall, and then it was canceled. So it went from being like the number one show on TV or whatever to being canceled in 1 year. And so, and that's like, I'm not saying that's what happened with WandaVision, but it's like you said, it's very hard to maintain that mystery. And the difference nowadays, can you imagine if Twin Peaks was on during and they had the internet? Or even a show like, say, X-Files, right? Because I was obsessed with X-Files when it was on. Brent, I'm not sure if you watched it.
I mean, I watched it in passively when it was syndicated, but I wasn't an avid viewer.
Because there was definitely some internet then and some fandom, but the level of the speed that information can travel now, there were so many plot holes in that mystery in X-Files. It could not have survived those 9 seasons nowadays. Because think about in 8 weeks, how many fan theories we've had and how much speculation and blah, blah, blah. And now we're only 9 weeks in, or it's over in 9 weeks, and people are freaking out because it didn't match their fan theory and blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't as good as it could have been. Like we're talking about, there are flaws, but I think if this was pre-internet, I think they could have got away. They could have been more forgiven because people would not have been scrutinizing over every little thing. And I'm not to say that's good. I'm not saying that's good. I'm not saying that they deserve to be forgiven. I'm just saying that what you're saying is true. It's very hard to maintain this level of like tension for that long of a time.
Yeah. So something's got to give eventually.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And that's also why I don't think they can do season 2. But I would like. It's like, can you imagine? Oh yeah, season 2. Now she's in Perfect Strangers with Larry and Balky. It's like, no, you already did this. You can't do it again. So it's like we were saying earlier, it'd be great to see the Vision by Tom King maybe or something. And people have been talking about House of M. Maybe that'll be the next thing.
That's what I was going to say earlier when we were talking about it. I think House of M could be an effective Wanda sequel season, but I don't think it should be called WandaVision. But I think a Wanda-themed TV show about the House of M would be very good.
Yeah, that would be great.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so not everything has to be 8 seasons in a movie.
Yeah.
You can just let this one breathe and let this one rest and be satisfied with what we were given because next week I think that's what they're letting us do. It's like they're not jumping right into Falcon and the Winter Soldier. They're giving us a how it was made episode. We'll still do a full volume. And we'll still talk because let's just free for all talk about Evan Peters. That's our golden opportunity. That's
our theme next week is Evan Peters.
Yeah, so we'll come prepared for that, and then then they're jumping right into Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And I hope, for the love of God, that they don't do that. That is like one series in and of itself. Like that's it, no more. Maybe they go on to another storyline. Like we don't need it. British television and their limited runs of shows, they had it right. Mm-hmm.
Agree. Yeah. I think America has a real obsession with sequelitis, and sometimes it damages the property, but it's all about the cash over here, baby, the money. The British are more sensible. So.
All right. So
No, I didn't have anything good to say. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, I was going to say, that wraps up this episode of the Full Volume Podcast.
It's all about the money, baby. No.
We'll gift that. We'll have someone gift that. Okay. So that wraps up this episode of the Full Volume Podcast. I have been your host, G.I. Jolie, and I'm your co-host, girl. Yes.
I thought you were giving me the and, like the lead in, like, and.
I was, and I felt it was long.
I have been Harvey Brent.
Yeah, and we'd like to thank Mike L. from the Comic Book Syndicate / Here Comes the Spider Cast / Windsor.
Windsor's finest.
As well, but definitely thanks for having me. It was a pleasure. Again, this reinforces my love of weekly television shows, not shows that are dropped all at once. You can spread out that love, spread out that buzz. So it was definitely a good time.
Yeah.
Talk about this.
Yeah. So as always, you can send us great mail at fullvolumepod@gmail.com. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter by adding Comic Book Syndicate, or on Twitter, Comic Syndicate, #fullvolumepod. Same with on Instagram, it's at Comic Book Syndicate. As always, all of these episodes and lots of great content are available on the Comic Book Syndicate website at www.comicbooksyndicate.com. And until then, keep it at full volume. Stay loud.
Full volume. Start reading The Darkhold.
Turn it up to 11
for the multiverse.
Yeah, do you know what? We didn't even talk about that end credit scene.
Well, we're gonna tease the audience just like WandaVision teased us. We're just gonna leave it on a cliffhanger and be like, there was a Darkhold end credit. Bye.